Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to the show there. Click on the little bell in the right-hand corner to get notifications when a new episode drops. And patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. Get yourself a credit on the show. And you can also get our merch at our TeePublic page. It's at ihatecritics.net if you click on the upper right-hand corner. Or you can just go to teepublic.com and search CriticsPod. That's our username. We got some cool artwork from Cousin Jeff up there. You can also search his page as well. I'm Jeff Laster, I believe is his name on there. I'm not sure if he goes by anything else. He's got some great art up there as well. You get masks, t-shirts, pillows, whatever you want. It's all there.
Yes. But don't become his friend on Facebook. He's ruining pretty much anything sexy. He's got this app that puts his face on like women's faces. And he's been doing these videos of like himself as Britney Spears, and now I can't look at Britney Spears anymore. So thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, I've noticed a couple other people do that too, and it's weirdly impressive how they do that. I don't know how much work it
really
takes
is. Like, I don't know how that works. Like, I can't even imagine an app like that. But it's so weirdly convincing. He put himself into all these various different movie scenes. Like, he's got himself getting an axe to the head from Friday the 13th. And yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah, but you can buy his stuff, and you can buy our stuff at teepublic.com. Anything that I'm forgetting news-wise? I know I'm looking at upcoming releases, and I see things on there, but it seems weird. I feel like it's going to change.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust any of that at the moment, but there is some news actually related to our classic this week, which we'll get to a little later on. But Ben Affleck is making a movie about the making of Chinatown.
Really?
Yeah.
So Fincher's making a movie about the making of Citizen Kane, and Affleck's making a movie about the making of Chinatown.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It ought to be interesting. Trying to portray Roman Polanski and finding somebody to play Jack Nicholson. Lots of intriguing casting opportunities there, and how that'll play out. People working on their Nicholson impressions again.
Yeah, I mean, how do you? That's man, you got to do that tough one. That's a really tough one. But it's Affleck, so I'm intrigued, if nothing else.
Yeah, he's a good director. He's proven it time and again. He knows how to direct a movie.
Is that something you'll see going forward, you think? Because, you and I both listen to different... Like, I listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts, and there's just a lot of retelling of old stories, and I just enjoy the nostalgia of it. And, I love watching... not even beyond wrestling, just interviews about behind-the-scenes stuff. That's kind of picked up a life on its own of all sorts of different mediums. Do you see that being kind of where movies goes? A lot of makings of movies?
Well, Hollywood they absolutely love telling their own stories and building their own mythology. And and sometimes even deconstructing their own mythology. So that's been a constant throughout time, is either telling a made-up story about Hollywood that's based off of a little bit of truth here and there, or like this. This is kind of a new trend, just taking the history of movies to create a movie. But then we had there's been multiple movies made about the making of Citizen Kane. Fincher's not the first to tackle this. There was Liv Schreiber played Wells.
Right.
Young Wells, not all that long ago. The Wells has been portrayed by a few different actors in different types of material over the years, and he's just this mythic Hollywood figure that people love to revisit. And I think Nicholson's going to be one of those guys as well that people like to revisit the stories that that they know about him. And there are a lot of stories, you know, that have kind of been lost to time because, you know, he's been away for so long and people have kind of stopped telling those stories that you can now, you know, repurpose and bring back for a whole new generation to reintroduce them to who Jack Nicholson was while he's still here.
Well, needless to say, I'm still excited about all that. So, especially after watching Chinatown again for the first time in a few years.
Yeah, you didn't have to sit through the two Jakes, so you still have your enthusiasm. We'll get to that.
I've seen it. All right. An American Pickle.
An American Pickle stars Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen stars as a Russian, or I don't know, some kind of Eastern European type who gets a job in a pickle factory and when he moves to America with his wife, and ends up falling into a vat of pickles and ends up getting pickled for 100 years. And he just happens to get out of the pickling and walks out into the world again. He's hailed as this scientific miracle, and they come up with a very funny gag about not explaining how this happened, which I kind of enjoyed. That made me laugh. Then he is reunited or brought together with his only living relative, his great-grandson, also played by Seth Rogen, who is an app developer living in a New York apartment. And I thought it was really clever the way that they kind of set them up first as to be obviously partners, and then like a rather nasty rivalry develops between the two of them, which is not where I thought this story was headed. I thought they were going to really stick with this bizarre fish out of water story, but they kind of freshened that up a little bit with this bizarre sort of rivalry that develops between this 100-something-year-old man and his great-grandson. So that was a little bit different. I thought this movie was going to be funnier than it is, and I thought maybe that it would also be a little bit more emotional than it gets. And I don't really know if they necessarily found the balance between that. There's some pathos in the movie, but there's some laughs in the movie, but I don't think there is enough of either of them to really find the whole thing completely satisfying. I like Seth Rogen, and I thought he created two rather distinctive characters, and I thought the kind of nastiness and bitterness that I wasn't expecting in the story did freshen up the sort of recognizable material a little bit. But overall, I wasn't completely satisfied with the combination of comedy and pathos.
Yeah, I'm with you. It really is. Seth Rogen's the only thing that really carries this movie, I think. There's a couple things that are neat and funny, like you said, but you can't watch it for logic, because they do it whatever with him falling in the pickle brine or whatever and coming back to 100 years later. But, you know, this movie has nothing to say really other than, basically if we were to be the same age as our grandparents at the same time, our grandparents would probably hate us. And that's probably accurate. They liked me as a kid because I'm the grandkid, but my 40-year-old grandpas probably wouldn't be friends with me. And that part of it is cute and fun, and Seth Rogen does the best he can with it, but that's kind of all there is.
There are no supporting performances here at all. I mean, Yorma Taccone is kind of there for a minute, but there really are no supporting players in this whole movie, and I've never seen anything quite like it, where this is just one actor playing opposite himself. It's daring in that way, so certainly from a performance and direction standpoint, but it is weird not to have any type of break from that to have like some other outsider's opinion of this.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I was entertained enough because I like Seth Rogen and he does do a good job, but it's not making a political correct statement. All it really is kind of supposed to be somewhat touching story about how they get everything back together in the end. But even that's just kind of weak. It's just it's not. Maybe weak's not the right word, but it's just not. It's not going to make you cry. It's not that powerful.
No.
So it just kind of exists.
Yeah. Not quite funny enough. Not quite, pathetic enough. It just doesn't quite come together. It's all right for Seth Rogen is good, and I enjoy him, but not quite enough there.
Right. Yeah. If I had to grade it, I'd say like Seth Rogen's performances, I'll give him an A. Everything else, I'll give a C. And it's watchable because of that. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, we'll just go right into it. She Dies Tomorrow.
She Dies Tomorrow is my favorite movie of the year so far. This is coming from director Amy C. Metz. And it tells the story of a woman who we meet in a very deeply distressed moment. She thinks she's going to die, and she specifically states that she's going to die tomorrow. And she says that repeatedly, just continuously, over and over again. Caitlin Schell plays Amy. And her friend Jane Addams, Jane just shows up looking in, just to look in on her friend, and hears her saying this and assumes that this has to do with her past with addiction, because Caitlin Schell's character had a sort of a past with drug abuse, and here she is very, very drunk and talking about how she's going to die tomorrow. Jane leaves her friend there thinking she'll just sleep it off, but when Jane gets home, suddenly she's thinking to herself, I'm going to die tomorrow. I'm going to die tomorrow. And she goes to see her brother, played by Chris Messina, and passes it on from there. And that's how the story develops. And it's interesting. Obviously, there was a very unintentional timeliness to this, because I don't think they knew
No
about COVID when they made this movie. But really what this is more of than something that intended to be about that, even though the feel of that does weigh on this movie, and this movie carries that weight extraordinarily well from my perspective. This is really, like, to me, is more like one of those Asian horror movie remakes without the horror movie villain. It doesn't have the little Asian girl covered in goo that all these movies have. Instead, it's just this overwhelming sense of dread, and that's what really won me over. The visual palette as well. It's a very low budget movie, but the visual palette is so interesting in the way they demonstrate this sort of this horrific thing that kind of just waves over these people in color, and then just sort of invades their thoughts, and they can't fight it. And it's so fascinating to watch, and it really relies a lot on some very communicative faces. And these are a lot of really, really great faces in this movie who really do an amazing job of communicating the desperate sadness, this overwhelming dread of what's coming, whatever that might be. Nobody knows what it is, and there's never going to be an explanation of what is happening here. The movie just has this oppressive sense of dread. It's like being caught in a fog that you can't get out of. And I was just riveted by that. And I just loved Amy C. Metz's direction. I love these performances. I love this movie.
I mean, you're basically watching people have anxiety attacks for... But that said, as an existential horror movie, everything you said is very true. The problem I have with it is when I'm watching it and hearing my daughter do a TikTok in a room next door, or my wife looking over and she's on her phone talking about how much this movie sucks. That affects the viewing of it, and it's not like, it's frustrating because it's not your typical horror movie. It's definitely an existential type of horror movie, and I can get why people would hate this. I mean, because literally the horror is the anxiety attacks.
Right.
But similar to like the Babadook or whatever, where it's a real life thing that they go with on that. It's the same thing kind of here. And it's just not, I mean, yeah, you're watching anxiety attacks, but it helps you kind of understand them, especially if you can get rid of the distractions in your house while you're watching it. Because in a way, you're not necessarily going through an anxiety attack while you're watching a movie, but you're definitely feeling the dread and you're feeling the helplessness. And I don't know if you want that feeling, but they do a great job of giving you that and making it more understandable. I mean, if nothing else, I think it's neat and impressive, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, this is the kind of movie I wish you could have seen on a big screen, because I got to watch it, on a very relatively large screen here at my house. I've got a very large television, and I had headphones on and the lights out and no distractions. So I was immersed in this thing, and the dread was just completely overwhelming me throughout. And if you can have that type of focused experience where you're able to let this movie sort of wash over you, it takes over and gets in your head. And there's not a movie you want in your head, which makes it that much more exciting.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
And I'll say this: I didn't get to experience that, but I could recognize that, if that makes any sense at all. So I definitely think it's a great movie. It would have been, experiencing that would have been something that I definitely would have remembered. It would be memorable, and I'd take it with me probably throughout the rest of the year, and it'd probably pop up on a list of sorts depending on how this year even plays out. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. But if you can watch it alone, even if you can't get a big screen experience, just watch it by yourself. Make sure no one's around, because I mean, listening to TikToks in the background really does take you out of this movie. But it's still neat nonetheless. I mean, it's definitely worth checking out. But keep in mind, you got to be into those existential type horror movies. It's not, like you said, there's not that little gooey Asian girl walking out of the TV or hiding up in the corner of the screen or jumping out of wherever.
Right.
There's no monster. But it creates twice the dread and hopelessness that those movies attempt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's available now to rent, so go ahead and find it if you can. Amazon, I'm sure iTunes, and all those other spots. Anything else on She Dies Tomorrow, or do you want to move on?
Just it's a must-see, and it's a wonderful time for female directors. So we've got another female director in just a moment. We had a great female director just last week. Mm-hmm. Women are making amazing movies right now, and it's and given the fact that we don't have movie theaters overrun with massive blockbusters, it's giving a chance for movies like this and directors like these women to really get to show themselves, and that is at least one good thing about this moment that we're all in. Definitely.
I used to go here.
Which is directed by another woman, as I was mentioning. Chris Ray is the writer-director here, along with actress Gillian Jacobs from Community. And it's interesting. We've been seeing a lot of some of the Community cast lately. We had Allison Brie in The Rental. We had Danny Pudi in the year's worst movie, Baby Splitters. And we've got Gillian Jacobs here in a very good comedy about a woman who's just a recently published author for the first time in her young career, and published in her 30s. She's looking around and seeing all of her friends getting pregnant and starting families, and she's just, she's got this book out, and the book is not doing well. She's been told that her publicity run for the book is not going to take place because the sales aren't very good. And she's just broken up with her fiance, which she wanted, but at the same time, there's a part of her that's like, oops, did I screw this up? And into that sort of maelstrom of emotions comes this offer from an old friend to come to her college, Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, to go there and read her book and meet with student writers and give them advice. And she takes this opportunity to go back to a place where she was inspired to be a writer. And oh gosh, how does this always happen? I keep forgetting this guy's name. It's Jermaine Clement plays her former professor, and you assume right away that this is some kind of like perhaps romantic entanglement. And I thought the movie handled that very well in a way that is very unexpected. But what I really love about this, I love Gillian Jacobs. She's incredible. But they actually do something in this movie that really just makes me want to drop the hammer on Baby Splitters again. They take these characters, these millennial characters, and with very little effort and nearly just slightly more screen time, create these well-rounded, lovable characters. Especially, there's just this one comic character, Tall Brandon, who's just, to me, one of my favorite creations of the year. I adore this kid. Brendan Daly is his name, and every time somebody refers to Tall Brandon or he does something, it made me laugh. The kid is just, to me, I just adored him, and all the little silly stuff that he does in the movie. But all these characters, all these young characters that they have in this movie are well-rounded, thoughtful characters and real, they feel like real people. And they don't go into that whole nonsense about, trigger warnings and identify as the attack helicopter, blah, blah, blah. None of that bullshit that, fucking 50-something comedians are always whining about with college students. This movie is much smarter than that. They know that these are people. These are human beings who are, discovering themselves and discovering life, and aren't spending all of their time. They're trying to make the world a better place, and you're just getting in their way with your nonsense. And I love that about this movie. That really makes me love this movie that much more. But Gillian Jacobs is the reason to see this. She's very funny, very smart, very lovable, and identifiable. She's a character who's in her early to mid 30s, who's struggling. She's put out a book that even she doesn't really like, and she's struggling with what the future is going to hold because she doesn't really have anything to hold her in place anymore. And she's kind of unmoored, and that feeling of being in your 30s without a particular direction to go is frightening, but also kind of empowering in a way. To have the opportunity to be able to do seemingly anything is kind of freeing, and I thought they captured that very well.
That sounds good. This is the one movie, or not one, but the one new movie that I didn't get to see this week. So it sounds pretty fascinating. Trying to think of what questions to ask. You seem to really have gone through that one pretty good. And that one I
recommend it. It's good.
And it's available on Amazon and iTunes and all those places where you can rent movies as well. Max Reload and the Nether Blasters.
Yeah, this one is really silly. Max Reload and the Nether Blasters is a adventure comedy about gamers. The cast is a group of just kind of unknown kids for the most part who play this game, and the journey is very simplistic. One of them, Max, the lead character, has to learn to be a team player. He's constantly running off on his own in their game and away from his team and not listening to anybody and getting everybody killed and all that stuff. And his journey throughout the movie is going to learn to be part of a team. And very simple, very straightforward journey. The key to Max Reload is not that storytelling. It's about jokes, and they've got good jokes. And, you can do a familiar story as long as you've got good jokes. And I thought this movie had enough good jokes for me to pass it. I don't think this is great by any extent, by any stretch. I don't think this is a great movie, but it's enjoyable enough. Kevin Smith is in this movie, and he's typically Kevin Smith. He's funny. He's got just oozing charisma, just constantly entertaining everything he does in the movie. No matter how awkward it might seem, he makes it work. And I like Greg Grunberg a lot. I've always been a fan of his. I'm always kind of surprised that he doesn't do more. And here he is finally kind of in one of the bigger roles he's had of late. He seems to prefer being behind the scenes these days. And I thought he was pretty terrific in his role here, which is kind of like he and another character are kind of like the guys from Ready Player One that Simon Pegg and Mark Rylance played, but more entertaining.
That is true.
I like this movie enough to say that it's worth checking out. I like the story behind it. It was made off of a Kickstarter idea with the two directors and Greg Grunberg behind it. And Martin Kove and his son, who are both in the movie. I was watching the pitch video on Kickstarter, and you cannot get Martin Kove out of that Karate Kid gear for anything. So I was surprised he wasn't wearing it in the movie.
That's funny. I did not watch that, so it makes me wonder though how long ago they did this, because Kevin Smith was pretty fat. But it did just come out this last weekend, and we had spent, not lying, 13 hours at a baseball field on Sunday, which is why we couldn't record that day. And we got back about 8 o'clock at night, and obviously they won the tournament, so we were kind of wound up. And I convinced my son to watch this instead of playing Fortnite, and he was really halfway agitated because he really wanted to play one game of Fortnite before he went to bed. But once this got going, he definitely, locked in and enjoyed the hell out of it. My wife was annoyed when Kevin Smith came on screen. She's like, "Well, this is why you're making me watch this, isn't it?" I'm like, he's barely in this movie. But it's a lot of fun. It really is. It's when you sit here and look at the other three movies, and I'll include American Pickle, it's, at least I would try it a little harder. This is more. It does kind of pale in comparison to them, although I think this is more enjoyable than American Pickle. But it's still good for what it is, and that's all you can ask from it.
Yeah, there's no real ambition here. They're just trying to, it's put on a show, just to give you a couple good chuckles and get in, get out. 72 minutes and we're done.
It's kind of like Wizard meets Jumanji, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that is
not as good. That's
a very good
Jumanji,
description.
But not as good as Jumanji, about as good as Wizard.
Yeah. Kid finds an old video game that he was obsessed with. That's an 80s game, and he goes home and he hooks it up to his computer and uploads it, and it ends up releasing an ancient evil, and he has to fight it, and that's the movie.
Yeah, and they recreated that old YouTube video, the Leroy Jenkins. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not.
Leroy Jenkins?
Have you seen it before?
It sounds familiar.
It's like I don't know. I'm not good with the names of these games. I'm just going to say World of Warcraft. It could have been any game. I don't know what it was, but it's a team game, and they're all outside they're about to go into this, next room, and in the next room a big war is going to go on. And they're all sitting here planning their moves, and this, I guess the guy's name, I'm sure it's all fake, but his name's Leroy Jenkins. He's like going to get a beer or a soda, or however old he is. He's not listening to the team. He gets back, gets on the headset, and goes, "All right, guys, let's go." And he screams his name, Leroy Jenkins, and runs in the other room, and they all get killed. And they even say it in the movie. I mean, they literally recreate that scene. And so it was kind of fun to see. So I don't know, if you haven't seen that video, go watch it. I don't know why it's funny. I'm not a gamer at all, but I found it funny when I saw it way back when, and that was like 15 years ago.
Really? Oh wow,
it's old. But I don't know. It was funny that they recreated that for this movie as well. All right. Anything else on the new release movies before we move on?
Not really, other than, again, just see She Dies Tomorrow, and be sure to see it under optimal conditions.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
Chinatown. Not the two Jakes, Chinatown.
Chinatown, with Jack Nicholson as the star here, as Jake Gittes, a private eye who investigates mostly, women who are cheating on their husbands, and that's kind of where we meet him at first. Is that he's introducing a client to the fact that his wife is cheating, and that'll come back and help him later. The case that he gets onto here is one he gets kind of tricked into taking, because this woman comes in pretending to be the wife of the local water commissioner, Hollis, and turns out that obviously she's not, and he kind of gets played, and this Hollis guy ends up dead, and Jake ends up kind of investigating his murder and also sort of falling in love with Hollis's wife. And This is, like, it's an all-time classic. What are you going to do? The movie really does just immerse you in the world of Private Eyes and noir and Chinatown. That L.A. atmosphere of the 1930s. It's got grit. It's got twists and turns. That's got a touch of the unexpected that you want from a movie like this. And Nicholson. What always strikes me about Nicholson in this movie is that he's so straightforward. You assume that a character like this has kind of a more of a dirtier, grittier background, and really he's casting Jack Nicholson as kind of a morally upstanding kind of guy is a little weird because you kind of expect him to have it to be a little bit more of a dirtbag, and he's not. Like, Jake Gittes is a real straight shooter, which is not the Nicholson of lore, I would say. Which I guess that always kind of catches me. Like, really, wow, it's interesting. Just kind of it takes a little bit of a buy-in on that, but he's very good. That's not too hard to buy in. Polanski, say what you will, we all know he's awful human being. Amazing director, incredible talent who really knows how to direct a movie. He's got a strong visual sense. He's got a great pace. He knows how to build mystery, and he's great with surprises and suspense. And it's gripping. It's gripping drama.
Yeah, I love this movie, and you mentioned Polanski, and that happened at Jack Nicholson's house, no less. So you got probably something related to this movie when all this happened, and this is probably the stupidest thing I've ever said, but the movie is so good you don't even think about that. Like, you automatically get transformed into the movie, and you just kind of get lost in the movie. And it becomes its own thing. It's no longer, you're not watching Nicholson anymore. You're watching, Gittes, whatever the hell is. I can't remember how they say it.
Mr. Gitz?
Yeah. And it's just it's one of those movies. I've seen it a dozen times, but I feel like I'm watching it for the first time every time I watch it again. And it's just so good, and it's so hopeless, and I love that about it. I mean, you never know where it's going to go, and then it doesn't matter where it goes. And I don't know. It's like whenever I'm kind of discussing politics with my friends and we're all on the same side, the way this movie ends is kind of my approach. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. You can say what you want, but it's still going to be horrible. Something bad's going to happen, so you might as well shut up. And that's not necessarily I'm not right there, but this movie, I don't know. That's where my head is at a lot of times, and this movie's there too. And that whole ending scene is just like, all this was for nothing. but it was not. It doesn't give me that pissed off feeling. It was just more of there's so much that's pointless. I don't know. I really love that last scene, and I love the build up to get you there to have that reaction. And I don't know. It's an amazing movie.
I love that there's no Mandela effect about that final line. He actually does say, "Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown."
Yeah. Yeah.
And Chinatown, goes on to become a shorthand for a while for that type of futility in the face of unending corruption, and that it is just I can understand that attitude. When it comes to politics, or when it comes to just facing down any type of corrupt, overwhelmingly corrupt situation where you can't win. It's Chinatown.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much proved everything, and then it was just like all for nothing. I don't know. I just. It's so, that you look at movies like, what's that Coen Brother movie where the tornado comes through at the end?
Serious Man.
Yeah, I mean, endings, I don't know. I know it's a different type of ending, but it's still it kind of gives me a similar feeling. And I don't know. I love this movie. I love everything about it. It's, like you said, you get lost in that noir, the 1930s LA. but you're following the story and you're into it, and you kind of forget how it ends, even though you know how it ends, and it still gets you there every time, and it gives you that same feeling like you saw it for the first time. Every time I see it, it does that, and I mean, this is the second time I've had it as a classic, and I feel the same way now as I did that time, plus the 10 times I saw it before that. So, I don't know. It's just, I always kind of go into this one thinking homework, and then I get lost midway through it, and not even midway, probably a quarter of the way through, and I'm wanting to see what happens, and then what happens, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's no point. We should all give up.
Yeah, it's the worst ending possible.
And I love that.
But there's no other ending for this movie. There's no other way for this movie to finish. It has to end that way, or none of the rest of it works. And you get that feeling when you get to the end. It's like, oh yeah, that is really the only way this could have ended. Like, this.
Well, if they wrap it up nice and clean, it's Heat. It's that De Niro Pacino movie. It's very more. It's The Departed. Even it's not the classic that it is. If you end it any other way, that matters so much, and it's so impressive and so good, and it's not about thinking about who made it. It's just it is what it is, and But I'm also trying to go watch movies like She Dies Tomorrow and support the people who aren't doing shit like that. The Seth Rogans and those. And that's all you can do.
The good people of the world. Yeah,
you're not gonna go back and shit on the other stuff. Just move on to people who've earned it. Man, anything else on Chinatown?
No, it's incredible, and it's as much as we despise the director. It's undeniable what a great movie he once made.
Yeah, and he did not make the two Jakes. It's the same writer, I believe.
Yeah, Robert Towne, in full mercenary mode, cannibalizing the classic for no particularly good reason. There's no reason to make a sequel to Chinatown. Absolutely none. There was no purpose to this whatsoever. This is just Nicholson, full-on vanity project, returning to the character of Jake Gittes. This time, I think in the 1940s or 1950s, post-war, which, whatever. None of this makes a lot of sense. It's going to be my main point, because so much of this is so bizarrely predictable and weird and unnecessary. And the movie just never comes around to justify its own existence. Nicholson directed this and stars in it, of course, alongside Harvey Keitel, who in the opening scene, I guess, is trying to set up his wife and the man she's sleeping with, who's his partner. But does he know that that's who's sleeping with his wife? I don't know. I was baffled by that. I was baffled by why they had to have him repeatedly practice saying, "This is my wife. You're sleeping with her in this hotel room on this date." Like, what is going on here? They get a recording of him, of the husband, murdering his partner. He comes bursting in, and he's supposed to have this practice line about where they are and what they're saying, because they're trying to get it all on tape. And he ends up shooting his partner, killing him. His wife lives. His wife is Catherine, by the way. Spoiler alert. From the little girl from Chinatown, which is not, the movie thinks this is some kind of big revelation, and I knew it from the first second. It took me no time whatsoever to realize that Meg Telly was Catherine. And the thing about it is, like, he keeps going through the motions of, like, he has no idea where Catherine is, and it's like, well, no, we all know where Catherine went. Like, she went to be raped by her father for the next, however many years he lives after being shot in his 70s. Like, however long he's lived, that's basically the rest of her life. for the time that he's alive, and then she inherits everything that he has, and then ends up giving it to Keitel through this convoluted series of nonsense. I hate this movie. I just do. It's awful. It's impossible to sit through. It's incredibly long, and Nicholson's idea of art is bizarre. His idea of direction is just weird. It's glacial, and his notion of the movie starts on this like 1.5 to 2 minute shot of his shoes. Like, what are you doing? Like, why do we care about your shoes? What is happening here? Oh man, I hate this.
Did he direct it?
Yeah, he directed it.
Jeez, I remember pretending to like this movie as a teenager because we were really starting to get into movies like Chinatown and The Godfather and Cuckoo's Nest and all these classics, and knowing that this was a Chinatown sequel and Harvey Keitel was in it and he was kind of the flavor of the month at that, Bad Lieutenant had come out and a couple other movies. So, we were of the age where these were like real actors and this is a real movie and Jack Nicholson directed it, so it's got to be good. We would watch it, just pretend it was good. And, you look back and I'm doing research at Chinatown, is it Robert Towne, that's the writer?
Yeah.
He had a different ending at Chinatown. Polanski changed it. And that matters because basically otherwise you're going to have the two Jake. If you do too much, I mean, if you're going to sequel a movie like this, which you shouldn't, but if you are, you have to have an idea first. And then once that idea works, maybe throw the characters into it. You don't take the characters and see where they went. That's just, you're not going to be able to successly do that. You shouldn't do it, period.
But you also have to, it almost feels like Nicholson had never seen Chinatown.
Right.
Did you watch the first movie, to kind of check your continuity here so that it makes any kind of goddamn sense?
Yeah, it's just such a... And I'm talking about when I got into it, it was like the 98, 99. That's when we started watching it. So this is 10 years later. It's just such a bloated piece of shit. Because Chinatown is not bloated.
No.
And you're wondering what happens. And and that's what's so good about it. When, like you said, this is so predictable and dumb. And even if you removed a little bit, you're going to figure it out. I don't know. It's just a...
And the thing, Roger Ebert loved it, 3.5 stars. And I'm reading his review going, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I respect you, but I have no idea what you're saying here. This is impossible to sit through.
And I don't know if it... is it possible that, because you watch Chinatown the same weekend, that matters? I can't... Maybe. And then you throw 30 years on top of it. I suppose that's a possibility.
Definitely don't watch them back to back because, all I did was just sit there and go, no. See, I just watched Chinatown. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
This whole weekend in 1990 was. I'm sure. I liked Air America way back when, but I'm sure I liked it like I like Navy SEALs. So I don't.
I didn't get the chance to catch this one. I know I saw it in the theater in 1990, and I remember loving it. Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. kind of, just bantering and doing action stuff.
Right.
I think I remember liking that, but it's been a while.
Yeah, would I like that in 2020? I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah. And
I don't really want to remember not liking it, and... You're already dealing with conflicted emotions dealing with a Polanski movie. Not that Gibson's is bad, but still it's there. So I just want to leave it there. And plus, we ran out of time. And then Flatliners, I'm not a big fan of that either.
Yeah, I hate Flatliners, which we talked about not all that long ago when they remade Flatliners for no good reason. And just it wasn't good in 1990. It wasn't good being remade in 2018. And I definitely wasn't about to waste any time on it this week. It's just, it's worthless, and they really shouldn't have wasted their time. And even though you've got this really super hot cast with Kevin Bacon, Kiefer Sutherland, Julia Roberts, it's still not a very good idea, or even certainly not a well executed idea. Medical students killing each other and bringing each other back to life and coming back haunted by whatever death is. Ugh. Final Destination before Final Destination. And Final Destination is better.
For a while. At some point you got to stop. But that is our show. Next week, we know for sure we've got Sputnik, Boy State. What was the something forbidden?
Forbidden City. China's Forbidden City
China's
is
Forbidden
a
City.
movie I'm going to watch.
Maybe First Cow, depending on what kind of time we got left, and whatever else pops up. Our classics, Elephant Man, and in 1990, The Exorcist 3 came out. My Blue Heaven, Taking Care of Business, and Wild at Heart, the David Lynch movie,
which obviously inspired the classic, The Elephant Man. So we're going to delve into the weird world of David Lynch next week.
And 1990 was a weird year. You had The Godfather 3 came out, The Exorcist 3 came out, and the sequel to Chinatown all came out.
Weird. So strange. And then Wild at Heart, just kind of out there like, wow. How
I can't wait to watch that again, because when I watched it the first time, I didn't have that Nicolas Cage love yet.
Yeah.
And so now, having seen Mandy and some of his other goofy movies, I want to apply that to this, and I think
see him as an actor again instead of as a personality.
Yeah,
but having still some of that experience of him as the personality.
Well, but just I think he's always been trying to be that goofy guy, but he wasn't quite the movie star yet when this came out. But by the time I had seen it, he had done Con Air and The Rock and all these movies. So the way I understood Nicolas Cage wasn't really what he was, and I don't know. I'm just curious to see, is this Mandy Nicolas Cage, or is this? He's a guy I'm trying to figure out. And this could very well be Mandy for all I know. It's just been so long since I remember it just being so weird I couldn't get into it. The girl from Jurassic Park being all crazy and Nicolas Cage being all weird. And, not knowing Laura Dern had done a million movies
right.
at the time. I just knew her from Jurassic Park. So I'm looking forward to revisiting this is what I'm getting at. All right. And I remember Exorcist 3 actually being surprisingly decent, so I'm curious if that's going to be ruined. We will see.
Oh, man. I hate Exorcist 3 so much.
Really?
Oh, it is garbage.
I remember 2 being garbage.
Flaming garbage. Yeah. Oof. But then I don't like any of the Exorcist movies now that I think about it. Not one of them.
Yeah. All right. Let's throw a little flick chart, and then we'll head out. The 10 Commandments or Babe?
Babe.
Agreed. Bacon over God. And I'm vegan. Fargo, the Hudsucker Proxy.
Fargo.
Yeah. Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, Deep Blue Sea.
Harold and Kumar.
Agreed. Arachnophobia, No Strings Attached.
What is No Strings Attached? I don't remember. Is that Ashton Kutcher?
Natalie Portman sex movie.
What was the other one?
Arachnophobia, the spider movie.
Yeah, I don't even remember Arachnophobia all that well. I'll go with the other one.
I won't argue. All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't know if I've seen that one, but maybe I have. In Jurassic Park.
It's Jurassic Park.
Was that ever a classic?
Jurassic Park?
All Quiet on the Western Front?
No, because it's like 4 hours long.
Oh, yeah. Fuck that movie. Scary Movie 3, The Thing.
The Thing.
Agreed. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, or Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas. If it had been Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one, I'd pick that.
I'm curious what happens next year to see if we fall in love with The Secret of the Ooze.
Who knows? I didn't expect to come around on the original, so.
The Virgin Suicides, Anastasia.
Virgin Suicides.
Agreed. The Dark Knight Rises, Amadeus. Yes.
Amadeus.
I agree 100%. Analyze That, Anger Management. Who's better at comedy, Robert De Niro or Jack Nicholson?
Analyze That.
I agree. Joe Dirt, Mission Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible 3.
Yes. This is easy. Easy Rider or Purple Rain?
Ooh. Ooh.
You liked Easy Rider?
No.
Oh.
I was just thinking, like, what a weird comparison. Like, that is such an interesting comparison. Purple Rain.
That is true. But that is a movie I never got. And that was the first time I was like, this is supposed to be good, and I cannot stand this.
Yeah, it's just so meandering, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe if I did drugs. I don't know. Crazy Stupid Love, Leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah. See, it's movies like that really boggle my mind with Nicolas Cage. Like, he just can't be figured out.
Yeah.
The Fox and the Hound, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956. Eat, Pray, Love.
I'm not sure I remember. I mean, I've probably seen The Man Who Knew Too Much, but
Been a while.
it's not coming to me right now.
All right, let's do Star Trek Into the Darkness, Eat, Pray, Love.
I don't hate Eat, Pray, Love, but I liked Into Darkness a lot more, so.
Yeah.
Eat, Pray, Love is not a bad movie. I know I'm supposed to say that it is. I'm not going to. It's good. I enjoyed it.
I've seen it. It's watchable. Live and Let Die, 127 hours.
Oh, 127 Hours. What an amazing movie.
Yep. Cowboys and Aliens, Primal Fear, starring Richard Gere.
Primal Fear. Cowboys and Aliens is such a huge disappointment.
Yeah. The Green Mile, Men in Black 2.
I mean, I don't hate either movie. I'm not passionate about either movie. Men in Black 2 kind of ruins a little bit of what's fun about the first one. The Green Mile is over 3 hours long. Green Mile.
I agree with everything you said except for I'm going to say Men in Black 2. The reason being is I should be passionate about The Green Mile if it's going to be good. I don't need to be passionate about Men in Black 2. So that's why I'm picking that one. Let's see what George does like The Green Mile, though, so it wins. Dark City, Alice in Wonderland, starring Johnny Depp.
Dark City.
I agree.
Alice in Wonderland needs to be buried in a hole somewhere.
Ooh,
deep.
This will be fun. I mean, it's obvious an answer, but Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, The Third Man.
The Third Man all the way.
Source Code, Dark City.
Ooh, good one. That is a good one. Dark City, but Source Code is an awesome movie.
Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, The Fly, 1986.
Anchorman for me. I can't stand The Fly.
I'm with you. I mean, I don't hate The Fly, but I love Anchorman. Drive, Miami Vice.
Drive.
We need to watch that on the show.
Yeah.
Especially now that I think you've really fallen in love with that director, even more so since that came out.
So true.
Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, Species.
Shit. Star Trek.
Going Species. I mean, I know it sucks, but it's fun to watch. God damn it, Star Trek. Jaws 2, Predator.
Predator.
I Am Sam, Raging Bull.
Raging Bull.
That Thing You Do, A Time to Kill.
That Thing You Do.
Yep. Thor Ragnarok, Drag Me to Hell.
Thor Ragnarok.
I think I'm going to go Drag Me to Hell. I like Thor okay, but I enjoy Drag Me to Hell.
I did not.
Really? You didn't like the Sam Raimi's movie?
Didn't work for me.
Well, you won anyway. You won. Pet Cemetery, 1989. Remember the Titans.
I'll go with the schmaltz of Remember the Titans. It makes me gag slightly less.
I'm with you. The Thomas Crown Affair, 1999, or The Change-Up.
The Change-Up. Is that the Ryan Reynolds, Jason Bateman?
I was taking me a while to figure it out, but now that I can kind of see the picture, that is Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman, yes.
Yeah, that one, I mean, it's not great, but it's got enough laughs, and it's better than whatever the other movie was.
Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah.
Shoot 'em Up, Journey to the Mysterious Island.
It's definitely Shoot 'em Up.
Agreed. Rocky 2, Demolition Man.
Rocky 2.
God, I might go. No, it's Rocky 2. Demolition Man's a lot of fun, but
it is.
I love him yelling, "Yo, Adrian, I did it." The movie sucks up until that point, but I'll give it that much. Sunset Boulevard, Philadelphia.
Ooh, God, that's good. Man, I think I got to go Sunset Boulevard because I can watch that one again, whereas I can't sit through Philadelphia again. As amazing as it is, it's oppressive.
Yeah. I've never seen Sunset Boulevard, so we'll have to make
really?
that
Oh, you got to
sometime.
see it. It's amazing.
And we've watched Philadelphia once in the show. It turns 30 in a couple of years, so. The Wizard of Oz, Mystic River.
Damn, that is another good one. I'm going to surprise myself and go Wizard of Oz.
I think if you had asked me a few years ago, I'd have said Mystic River, but it's a couple of those movies that Clint Eastwood has made lately. Kind of tarnished that one. I mean, if we have a reason to watch it again, maybe it'll change my opinion, but for the time being.
Yeah.
The Rocketeer, Casino.
Casino.
Agreed. Tootsie, Lady in the Water.
Damn it.
A good movie you're supposed to like. A bad movie everybody hates, but you've always said, at least he tried.
At least, he hung his balls out there.
And a Tootsie, he did not. Tucked him inside.